I hope things are going fine with you. We are nearly coming to close to of all these context classes. One by one, these are getting over. Today happens to be the 10th class for this facilitation skills. And here what we are going to do is we're going to have a review of the entire sort of course. So right at the start, I would like you to come up with questions that you have in your mind right now. Otherwise, we'll start off, sharing one by one. Right? Yes. Are there any questions at the start? We can start off with these questions. Okay. Yeah. Who would like to go ahead? Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Arpita here.
Good morning.
Sir, a little bit more clarity I needed on difference between facilitation skills and facilitation techniques. I'm getting a little confused between the two when even in the assignment this had come
Okay.
in finding out using appropriate skills and techniques when dealing with different type of employees, those who are experienced or freshers or in-house trainees or external trainees. What are the question had come on how what is the better use of rapport building, facilitation technique and facilitation skills in these different training programs.
Right.
What, so I wanted a little bit more clarification between the skills and the techniques.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Right. Okay. Further questions? Yeah. No. No further questions. Also. Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
I
Yeah.
think my question is quite close to Arpita's question. It's regarding the facilitation tools. So, practically, which are the most appropriate tools which are being used in the industry currently? If you could just throw some light on that. Just,
Okay.
yes, thank you, sir.
Right. Okay. Further, some more questions. Okay. Mm, okay. My phone has been. Uh, right. I had to mute my phone. Right. Okay. Fine. There are these questions. We'll look at this. So what I'll do is I'll view and as we go ahead and review the whole thing, then I will elaborate on these differences between facilitation skills, techniques, facilitation tools, and we'll elaborate on whichever one is you would like me to further explain, right? So that's what we'll do. Now, see, uh, when we started off with the understanding of what is facilitation, right? Now, okay. Um, are some of you also attending Ms. Rekha Bahadur's sessions also? Or you, because you would have finished that experiential.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, those who are attending that would have also had this debate and discussion on this whole issue of what is facilitation and various techniques of facilitation, etc. Because quite a few things which we do in while we are handling the experiential exercises, so that will be coming in what is called the this facilitation, right? So we looked at the definition of facilitation, etc. We looked at how it is different from just delivering a training. What does it mean? Facilitation we looked at in three different settings. One was facilitation as a manager, which could be also facilitating a meeting. There was also facilitating in one-to-one situation, and then we also had this facilitation which is for a trainer facilitating a group, which means delivering training and doing that, right? So those are the things which we were this way, right? So okay, now then we went ahead and we looked at the mining group gold process, uh, right? And we also looked at the interpersonal behaviors, right? And then we had a virtual meeting also, which we had conducted, right? Okay. And there we had looked at the different type of interpersonal behaviors. So would somebody like to tell me the three categories of interpersonal behaviors? Who would like to recall that? We had done that, right? Quickly forgotten or something?
So, is this referring to the gatekeeping the group,
Yes, okay.
how we are proposing and
Yeah,
giving feedback to the
yeah,
group
yeah,
and
yeah.
maintaining the behavior?
Yes, yes. You are at the correct place. Go ahead and tell me what are the three categories, and then some description of those three. You know, right?
So like when we are done the virtual meeting, the
Yes,
bringing together of the group, then the idea was put forth on the discussion in which there were the group members, at least there was a leader of the group, and then there were group members who were giving feedback. There were also some who were disputing a point or
yeah,
disagreeing with the point.
yeah,
There was somebody who infused humor into it, and the
yeah.
situation was brought under control.
So
So
what was
various
the?
and then a conclusion was taken from the discussion,
Yeah,
summarized and given. So those various roles were defined
yeah,
against which the uh, group behavior was monitored.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
we had the gate opening and gate closing for people who
Mm-hmm.
were going on for too long, how to put a closure on that, and for the shy ones, how to pull them out.
Okay. So
That's
what we
There
really
was
had was, yeah,
sir,
yeah. Go ahead. Yes,
Sanjeev sir. Good morning,
yes,
sir. So
yes.
group task
Good.
behavior we had said, which is
Yeah.
content oriented,
Yes.
proposing, building, information seeking,
Yes.
information giving, opinion seeking, opinion giving, or disagreeing,
Yes.
summarizing. All
Yes.
this the testing, consensus testing also was there, and then there is a group maintenance behavior, which
Yes.
is process oriented, sir. Encouraging, harmonizing,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
standard setting, or maybe tension relieving, or performance chairing, all that. And then,
Very
as
good.
Arpita said, gatekeeping processes, gate opening and
Yes.
gate. These are three
Yeah.
circles you had made, sir. Three different
Yes.
circles
Yes.
which
Yes.
are intersecting each other.
Yeah. So
And
first that
one,
was the task behavior.
yes, task
We
group.
moved the task ahead. Maintenance behavior, which was like the right environment in the team, in the group. And the third, of course, was the gatekeeping behavior, which is gate opening and gate closing. Right? Okay.
Yes,
So we
yes.
had looked at that. Right. Okay. So that's good. Right. Okay. Uh, mm, uh, uh, right. Now we look at this whole issue of skills of a facilitator, facilitation tools and techniques. So as far as tools and techniques are concerned, they are almost interchangeably used, right? Tool in real this thing is more to do with an instrument, in the sense that in facilitation tool we can say okay, a specific particular tool that we are using. So for example, one of the tools or technique, now this is very interchangeable, was how we organize the thoughts, or the ideas that are generated in, say, in a brainstorming session. So we had that mind mapping. Mind mapping, now whether you call it a tool or a technique, it does not really make much of a difference, right? So mind mapping, we had looked at general problem solving. We had looked at things like that. Skills of a facilitator are the qualities that a facilitator is having, which help him or her to be able to effectively discharge her role, right? So that's a skill. Skill is with the facilitator. Facilitation tools and techniques are what we see as what is being used by them, right? Okay. So I'm just trying to open my, trying to locate my, um, you know, PPT, but I seem to have lost it somewhere, right? That's the problem. So let me see if I can get it. I suddenly I've lost it somewhere where I can't really see where this file is, you know. Give me
So you can search by the name. If you remember the name, just go to the
yeah,
search option and search it.
I did that and it went into a dizzy, you know. It was just trying to, okay, can't look at this, and I'm not getting even from there, you know, this. Okay. Yeah. So it will come. Let me see where it is, or it is lost somewhere, it is gone somewhere. So just give me a minute. I think the okay. Okay, fine. I have got it. I had classified it differently, so that is why, you know, I got lost that directory. Now finally I have it. No problem. I'll share the. Yeah. So let me share my uh, slides. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we are on to it, right? Facilitation skills. Okay, this is the agenda that initially I had thought, but there were more changes which had been made here. We had looked at all this, the role of leader, manager, and facilitator, and we had looked at this process, group, and self. Mining group gold is what we used. What is a group gold? Okay. Why people don't share their ideas freely? How do you facilitate them to come out and share this, right? And we had looked at this. This is what we just talked about, the interpersonal behaviors, right? Now we look at, okay, this thing. This, okay. So when we look at this facilitation skills, the skills which a facilitator has, which help him in performing the facilitation task. So a good level of communication skills is what is always helpful. Active listening, that's very important for the facilitator, because he or she is always going to be first understanding what his group members are really at it, what is their concern, what's their query, etc. So unless you are very good at listening, active listening, and not only active listening, you have to also be able to see from where they are coming and what sort of feeling they have. And so your empathetic listening, the difference between active listening and empathetic listening is essentially about an empathetic listening. You understand what's the other person feeling and why, right? Okay, why you may not know always, but you may inquire as to why he or she is feeling that way. So being able to understand the feeling of the person and being able to then inquire into it, that helps a lot, right? So these are the skills which a facilitator will have. Then important skill that a facilitator should have is how does she help in structuring the thought process of the individual or the group for whom the facilitation is aimed at. So, the whole issue of clarifying assumptions, checking facts, and differentiating between fact, opinion, and the value judgment. This is quite important, because many times, when we mistake an opinion to be a fact, that is what will be a problem. It will create a problem, right? So slotting our statements into these three categories is very important, right? And it brings in a lot of clarity, right? That's the facility, or that's a skill that the facilitator should be having. Then there is rigorous reasoning is what will be a good facilitation skills. So these are rational processes that are. Then questioning, the right type of questioning. Later on, we had actually looked at questioning, which in the Socratic dialogue also we had looked at what sort of questioning, how will it help to bring out what is hidden inside, how will it bring out to a situation where a sort of what is called uh, discrepancy or inadequacy or inappropriateness of a particular stand will come out, right? Or a contradiction in the statements will come out. So that's the way you go ahead and you do develop the art of questioning, and then giving feedback to the person or to the group. There was also this issue, and this issue has been many times talked about. Should you, when you are facilitating, should you act as a consultant? Should you give your ideas or not? Well, it is generally advised that a facilitator should not impose the ideas, but should try to elicit those thoughts from the person himself, right? However, at different points of time, you can actually share that, and that will be called sort of a advocacy, So there is also a need for a balance between advocacy and inquiry, because sometimes if the person is not moving ahead, then there is this, you can share your solution, your idea, right? So these are the things which I am putting under the facilitation skills. Now, what I'm putting under facilitation tools and techniques, now here I have tools and techniques together. So there is no separation in terms of tools are theirs and techniques are theirs. Right? Okay. So these are the things which we had shared. However, this is not an exhaustive list, right? General problem solving framework I had shared with you, brainstorming, consensus seeking, because this is a process of consensus seeking, and as I had asked movie 12 Angry Men and the Ek Ruka Hua Faisla, there you would have seen, the whole uh, process of consensus seeking led to so much of discovery of underlying motivations, underlying, say, opinions and the biases that the individuals had, right? So the whole this technique of consensus seeking many times brings out issues which are not easily coming to the surface. Then we had this process mapping. It helps a lot in clarifying what essentially is the, the steps involved in this, and it also helps to develop a process discipline also in this, in the group, right? Then we had looked at the whole issue of mental models, and I had given a reference of fifth discipline book. Some of you might have read it or may like to refer to it, that we work with a certain sort of mental models, and these mental models help us to arrive at a conclusion. However, sometimes the mental models are old models and they don't work. And I would give a very simple example. You know, about 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, the mobiles that we had was all key, type, where we actually had buttons, and we used those buttons to phone up a person or do whatever we want to do. Then we have now this smartphones, and in the smartphones, this is a different way. Some of the older people, I find, had lots of difficulty in switching from a older type of mobile to a new type of smartphone, because their mental model that they had in their mind about a phone was something. Now, I am not taking you further to the actual phones which used to be rotary type. If you have seen in the movies, many of you are young, so you may not even have seen. Maybe in your childhood you might have seen in your own home. Those rotary type of models were or landline phones were quite a different thing, right? So what really happens is, with a certain mental model, where certain things become easy, and certain times we might have to examine a mental model and change, adapt to a new mental model. So discovering that, etc., discovering a mental model, articulating it, and then understanding what is the role of a mental model in the way I work and behave. That can be another important thing that a facilitator can actually try to help the person to uh, become aware of the mental model with which he or she is working, right? Now, for example, let me give you one more example of mental model. I gave you a simple example. Now I'll give you a little bit more. Uh, See, when we suppose you are investing in stock market, right? How you are really doing is you understand and you have a more mental model of what type of industries are going to do better, which company is going to do better, and you don't know much about that company except what you have learned from here, there, and all that, and you have a certain model, mental model about that company, and based on that mental model, and you when you hear certain type of decisions or action taken by them, then you say you predict that whether the share price will go up or down. Now, if you believe that the share price will go up and your mental model is predicting that your share price of this company in which I am interested will go up, you are likely to take a decision to buy more shares of that company at the current price, and you expect that in the future this will go up. So there is a mental model which you are having in your mind, and that's what is causing you to take certain decisions and then actions. Now, whether that mental model works or doesn't work, that comes out when you see the outcomes in future, right? Okay, so I had also shown you this plan B, parking lot, multi-voting, right? Okay, we had done quite a few of these things. Now this is the second slide of that, where we had looked at a whole set of affinity diagrams. That is that's what one can really work with. Mind mapping was only one example. There's also the cause effect diagram. Many of you would be familiar with the type of fishbone diagram which we use in many times you might have seen this in the Kaizen type of you know effort which might be there in your organization. We are also look at this whole issue of what if analysis, scenario building exercise, force field analysis, incongruity checking, debrief, six set singing. I would repeat this. This is only a short list of the meditation tools and techniques which are there for you to begin with, but there are many, many more tools and techniques. And what you use and what will be useful at what time will be depending on your practice of facilitation, right? So, is that question well understood? Fine. Okay.
Yes, sir. So
Yeah.
in the books, it's still just referring to the chapters we did in the first semester, where lecture, role play, and so on, 5, 6 methods were given. So can we ignore that and focus on this itself? Because the book
Okay.
seems to be overlapping with the first semester what we had done.
Is this what I am explaining? Is this an improvement on what?
Yes, sir, of course. Yeah.
You might have to forget certain
Right.
things, right? Unlearning is also important. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So, okay. What I come back to is, um, okay, we've done this mind mapping, etc. All that. Okay. Then we went ahead and we did the Socratic dialogue. Right. Okay. In the Socratic dialogue, we looked at just a minute. I seem to have. Okay. So we did Socratic dialogue, and then would somebody like to recall what are the I would say uh, how shall I put it? Okay, what do you do when you indulge in Socratic dialogue? Who would like to speak up? Yeah. Yeah,
Sir,
yeah.
it is a conversation between the coach or the mentor and the mentee, in which
Yeah.
the inside out approach is practiced. So he's been asked what he is dealing with, why he would not like to do, why he would not like to do, or what is his fears. thoughts, constraints, ideas about certain things, doing or not doing. And then in that inquiry, it's an inquiry system basically. The individual goes through and he finds his own way and performs.
Yeah, yeah. So, see, one of the main thing in any of this, facilitation is that you are dealing with adults, isn't it? And when you are dealing with adults, you feel that the onus of learning or onus of finding a solution to the problem that that person is facing is on him or her only. So that's your the responsibility is you are a facilitator, you are a supporter, you are helping the person, and when you are helping through questioning, and the question is leading his or her mind to the a direction which was where he or she was not going, then that is the help that you are providing, right? And by helping him this way, you are making him take further steps of mind, steps in reasoning, etc. And then in case he has started from a position, an assumption which is not correct, or he has come to a conclusion which is not correct, you are showing how incongruous or how incompatible that is with the reality around you, and how it will be not beneficial. So you are helping the person to without imposing your thoughts on the person, right? Okay, good.
Excuse me,
Thank
sir.
you.
Can I just ask a question, sir? This is Nisha here.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
As I remember you talking about the Socratic dialogue in your previous session also, but I still have this doubt. Socratic method, I feel it's like very closely resembling the brainstorming method. And when we adopt this Socratic method, we'll be involving a lot more other facilitation tools and techniques itself in this Socratic dialogue, sir. Like we can also be involving mind mapping. We'll be having a lot of other tools like problem solving.
Yeah.
Is that so?
No, no. Let's first of all distinguish between brainstorming and Socratic method. In brainstorming, you typically have a group. In Socratic dialogue, it is not necessarily that you have a group. In fact, there is a facilitator and there is another person who is facilitating, right? So there can be many times in Socratic dialogue, it is one-to-one conversation. In the brainstorming, you have certain sort of, like rules where you keep generating new ideas. In Socratic dialogue, it is not generating new idea. It is logically seeing what results from what I believe or what I start with, right? If I start with a particular, say, statement, I'm using the word statement because many times we take a view, something which we know, which we can articulate as a statement as a fact, but that may not be the fact. It may be an assumption, and if it is an assumption, how do you discover whether this is a valid assumption or this is a incompatible with the reality, right? So if that is so, then you in the Socratic dialogue you bring it to bring the person to that situation when he is able to discover, no, what I started with is not a fact, it is actually an assumption, and to in all probability this assumption is not even valid, right? No, so whereas in the brainstorming, you are purely like generating ideas in the first instance. In the second instance, you are actually sorting out the ideas, etc., etc. So that goes on, right? So brainstorming is more of a, what is called
idea
right?
generation is what we can say.
This idea generation,
And
right?
I think we can
In
also take.
Socrates, yeah, it is not idea generation. It is idea is generated, but idea is generated
Not
by
accepted or applied.
logically, slicing the slicing what you are beginning with, right? Okay. So in a way, it is a mental slicing our own mind, you know, and finding out what essentially is there and what is needed to be removed, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Right.
much, sir.
Right. Right.
Sir, Arpita, I had another query on handling the feelings or emotions of the group. You had touched on that in a class. If you can please
Yeah.
touch on that.
Yeah. Okay, I can go back to that. Yeah, this was the thing. See, in a group, many times what really happens is what is being said is being said. It looks very logical. However, that's only an expression of emotion. If you recall that movie Ek Ruka Hua Faisla, and many times people had that as if they knew that this has happened, but then it was brought out on an inquiry or in a debate amongst those jury members that that was not a fact. That was just a assumption, or that was a assumption which you had taken not as assumption but as a conclusion. You jumped at the conclusion and you then took that conclusion as a truth, which is where you went wrong or you can go wrong. Now, you would also say that in the later part that how suppressed feelings, the feelings which are feelings of hurt, which were there in let Pankaj Kapoor's heart, had to be uh, brought out, and then only what could be seen, the truth could be seen with the clear mind and clear eyes, right? So whenever there are feelings and there are expressions, and you know that the group members are expressing the feelings, you need to inquire into what truly is there, what were the facts, and why the feelings, right? Inquire into that. Don't dismiss the feelings,
Mm.
right? Don't dismiss the feelings, because feelings are as important as facts. Remember this thing: in a group situation, feelings are as important as facts, and address them, but understand the source of those feelings, right? And then the source of feeling, then address that and then come up with what is called the solution. For example, at this point of time itself, there can be a behavior by some people in a group which looks to be irrational. Now, when you look at the irrational behavior, you try to inquire, it is coming out with certain feeling. It can be a feeling of fear, it can be feeling of lack of trust, mistrust, etc., etc. And then you try to address that. Let the people articulate it, address it, uh, check out the facts, what they are, and then try to see what can we do in this situation. So when we are saying solution, the solutions are really of two types. So what is one is of what type of decision we can make, and the other is what type of action can we take. So decisions, actions are in terms of sort of a solution. Okay, for example, if suppose we are debating, discussing in our organization something about an automation. Now, one of the person can say, but why should we bring in automation? It means a loss of job. Now, because of loss of job, suppose there is a person who is a employee union representative, he would sort of like oppose any move or any decision which means bringing in more automation. Now, in a situation like this, we have to address this in a manner in which we can really come to a collectively good solution. Shall I give you a little older examples and very good example? 1991 we had this liberalization. Dr. Manmohan Singh, as the finance minister, had brought in this total sea change in our economic policy. As a result of this, what really happened, and I'll take 5 minutes to describe this particular industry situation, that some of the, import export was liberalized in the sense that anything if you want you can import, etc. Now you can import if you have those things of good quality in the international market and also at a right price. Now, one of our industry felt absolutely threatened and was likely to get extinct, and that industry was steel making industry. And the two big players in the steel making industry were Tata Steel and Steel Authority of India. So one was private and another was public sector. These people had this situation in 1991 that the cost of producing 1 ton of steel in India was twice the price of steel in international market. Can you see this? The same 1 ton of steel was available from abroad at half the price. Who would actually go ahead and take the steel from Indian companies? Everyone who needed that, whether it is a construction industry or the others, they all would have got them back, got them from outside. And it was an existential threat to the steel industry. The solution was that they had to reduce the manpower, because manpower was a big cost, and that what was possible was improving efficiency, and that was possible only through automation. So a heavy input of new technology, more of automation, reduction of manpower. Have you ever heard about any strike in Tata Steel or any strike in Steel Authority? The feelings of thousands of people that their jobs will be lost were handled very well. And in fact, I'll tell you that our steel industry went ahead, transformed itself, gave VRS to uh, thousands and thousands of workers, and this was accepted by them because this was shared with them that either we fail fully or we can save some jobs and we can stay afloat. Now, there is a good ending to this story also. From 1991 to 2006 or 2007, in about 16 years, uh, uh, in our 16 years, steel industry of India went from being one of the monolithic, high-cost industry to one of the most efficient industry. It was at that point of time Tata Steel became the least cost producer of steel in the whole world. In the whole world. I'm not talking of within India only, in the whole world. 15 years of this transformation and all that was possible by handling people and their emotions quite well and creating solutions through consensus, through sharing. And this happened both with Tata Steel and Steel Authority of India also. And that is where we have to see that on a very large scale, how do you facilitate a change process, right? That some of these issues were there. And just one more thing. This was because Tata Steel was the least cost producer. They took over the steel industry, one of the big steel company Europe called Chorus. And the difference between Tata Steel and Chorus was Tata Steel's capacity was 1, Chorus production capacity of steel was 6. So they took over a 6 times bigger company. And today, Tata Steel has a very big presence in Europe also, right? That's the thing, right? So these are challenges. This is how we deal with. Sometime at a very large scale, we have to do the entire facilitation process, and not by one person, but with a whole group of people. Never ignore the feelings, right? Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Then, if I go back to my this thing, okay. We also looked at. We did this flipped classroom. So, who will like to sort of share about the essence of flipped classroom, and how do we really go ahead and conduct a class in a flipped classroom manner, and what are the benefits of this, right? Yeah, who would like to do that? Anybody who recalls, remembers? No idea. Many of you had participated in that. You might have made notes. I'm still at it, still pushing, pursuing. If any one of you can sort of recall. Okay, tell me one thing. What is the difficulty in doing, and what is it that we can really do by which we can handle this sort of right now? Many of you had been in that session, right? And right now, yeah, okay, yeah, Neha, you wanted to recall, okay. So, what is the difficulty? Yeah, go ahead, Neha.
Flipped classroom is like uh, we give the material to them to get prepared,
Yeah.
and then in an one-to-one classroom, we discuss on that and get opinions and solutions.
Okay, a good attempt. Okay. Anybody else would like to?
So this is Nisha here. I just would like to
Yeah.
try something.
Yeah.
In the flipped
Do try.
classroom, it's like instead of the instructor addressing, the students as a group or something, the learners,
Yeah.
the participants, they move at their own pace, like, in applying the knowledge in hands-on ways. And it's kind of a different experience, overall experience, where they discover when they are kind of going through the facts. It's like at their own
Right.
pace. It's a discovery process.
Okay. What
So
you
that
brought out was one very good thing, which was vision. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, Binita, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so sir, it's a combination of instructions and self-learning, what I understand. So the instructions it is not as if like facilitation, there are no instructions given. Here instructions are given by the person, by the instructor, but the people can absorb that at their own pace, and the feedback or the interaction happens together. So there is this balance between what you called advocacy and learning. So this is that.
Okay, fine. Thank you. In fact, see, what we do normally is that we teach something in the classroom, And then whatever we have taught them in the classroom, they are expected to, the participants are expected to apply them in their own life, right? Isn't it? Now, in the flipped classroom, what we do is, and now the criticism of this method is that knowledge is available hai, everywhere. It is there. Books are there. Google is another source from where you can acquire lots of knowledge. And why should we have a classroom, right? That's where the flipped classroom comes. Is that instead of people applying and are allowed to apply in their own workplace, you flip the entire thing and say, before you come to the class, acquire knowledge the way you can acquire from the sources which we are telling you. One, we are giving you a book. Another, we are giving you articles, or we are also giving you links on the YouTube, etc. From wherever we give you, help you to acquire all that you can acquire in terms of knowledge, etc. All that. However, when you come to the classroom, the benefit of coming to the classroom is that you can actually apply that, or at least simulate the application of all those ideas. So simulation of application, or plan, or try to talk about how am I going to apply all this, right? And get away from the class with clarity about where I am going to apply and how I am going to apply, right? And might be you have already applied it in the classroom itself, right? So the application, which is considered to be of post classroom, is actually brought in the classroom, right? That's the flipped classroom, right? Okay, so good. We did that, right? And then we had looked at some of the miscellaneous topics of rapport building with participants, facilitation in experiential exercise I had talked about. However, now I find that that is getting done quite well with the experiential method by Madam Rekha Bhardwaj. She's excellent on that. Right, I mean, many of you might have missed that because you are in the second semester, right? Okay, so managing questions, managing difficult participant behaviors, that's another thing that we looked at. And then we had gone ahead and had one session on the facilitation in the case method. Anybody would like to share a few important things or experiences of sharing or experiences of handling case studies or case discussion in the classrooms or in the training programs? Anyone who would like to and anybody who would like to say what additional things you learned from that session?
So I would like to reply.
Yeah.
The interesting thing I found about the case you had given, first I understand it was a very classic case that was shared with us, was that there was no standard questions to it. So we had to deliberate and explore it deeper and think of alternate solutions. So the instruction was not coming by the trainer, rather there is no right answer to it. It was as many possible solutions to be dug out from those few paragraphs that could be possible, and explore it and then try to apply similar situations back at work. So the thinking about each and every option available was very deep, and it can stretch to hours if one explores such cases.
Yeah, good. So, this case discussion in a group really helps the people to sharpen their way of thinking. That helps them to sharpen their ability to argue. And in fact, whether the questions are given or not given at the end of the case, you have to put it yourself in the shoes of that person who is the main character over there. And in a managerial situation, what you always look at it is that what is the role of a manager? the role of a manager is to, uh, you know, take action. But no action should be taken without taking a clear decision. And no decision should be taken without clearly analyzing, right? So let's now get to this, analyze the situation where they are. What are the options in front of us? What can be the goal that we can set? And what is the decision that we take? And then how do we convert our decision to action? Those are the basic things that are required, that is always there in a managerial situation. So that's what one has to be aware, and one has to keep thinking. There is no, whether there is a question or there is not a question, it doesn't not really matter in a case study. If the case study is given a situation, you go to the situation, nobody tells you what to do. You yourself have to decide, right? So, Warren, would you like to say anything? You had raised hand.
Absolutely, sir. You guys have already covered all the points. It's all about I know when we talk about case study, we want participants to apply their mind, understand the situation, what
Yeah.
one can be into. It is like a situation you want the participants to feel and analyze, and then we discuss among all the participants. And when we discuss, if we have 10 participants, we'll have 10 different ways of thinking it, and mutually we decide and we see how actually we could have got things done. And
Yeah.
we basis of the case, we learn if this would have we will face in future, how we gonna be acting and how we gonna be handling the situation. So it is all about learning from the previous situations, whatever has happened in the past with other people. Or we talk about recently, I was doing a change management session, and there was one Nokia case study that we discussed of 35-40 pages. So everyone was having a different opinion, and few of them got deep inside and told, and shared that this would have been better if we would have done this thing. So it's a
Yeah.
wonderful way of getting the discussion and bringing the people mind together in order to that how deep and how far we can go.
Right. Good. Very good. In fact, through discussion method, you also start learning from your classmates, because you try to figure out भाई उसका mind इस तरीके से क्यों चलता है,
बिल्कुल
and you try to figure out कि मैंने भी तो उस तरीके से सोच सकता था, क्यों तो मैं क्यों नहीं सोचा. And that's the way you try to absorb the different way of looking at the solution, looking at the problem, creating new solutions, and try to learn from each other. And in fact, this sort of learning, not learning from the your teacher, but learning from each other, is one very good skill you develop, because in future I can only learn from when I am working, either from my colleagues or from anybody who is around, or I can little bit, my boss is going to teach me, but boss may be very busy, may not always be ready to teach you much. But many times you learn from the boss by understanding and by observing and by following him, rather than actually he is giving you the some training or coaching. Yeah, some bosses are good, they try to coach the employees very well, right? So learning from your colleagues, which is good, should be a lifelong your and learning from others, which should be a lifelong pursuit, is what you learn, what you develop in the case discussion method also. Right. Okay, good. In the last session, what we had done was we had looked at the challenges of facilitating top team workshops, and many of you should be and would be getting opportunity of handling the top team workshops, which are not too many, but yes, once in a year or a few times in a year they might be having. So what are the challenges in facilitating a top team? That was what we did in the last session, which was, I think, a couple of weeks away, right? So who would like to summarize those things? Yeah, yeah,
These teams are very consisting
yeah,
of people who are very successful.
yeah,
So they normally have a very strong ego,
yes,
and there is a sense of knowing everything. There is also a bit of rigidity and resistance to accept any change,
yeah,
which these top teams will have. And
yeah,
if their particular organization is doing well,
yeah,
they would not. I mean, they would resist the change. First of all, they will
yeah,
always resist the change.
yeah,
So
that's right.
collectively as well as individually, so there has to be some pre-programmed
Yeah,
workshops where you have to build the trust.
yeah,
You have to develop the agenda much in advance in workshops.
yeah, right.
You have to have breakouts, some strategic workshops
Yeah,
where the vision and the mission, where to reach and how to reach, all these outcomes have to be well planned
right,
when we have to
right.
facilitate top teams.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And you have to understand the dynamics of that group also, right?
Yes, knowing
Which,
them well, sir.
yeah, which
Their
essentially we
viewpoints.
can use the other word is the politics of that
Yes,
organization,
yes,
right?
sir.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you, Sanjeev. That's a good, right, this thing. Okay, quite a few other things are also there, but let's sort of, so we are coming to about 1/6, and you would have several other questions right now in your mind. Go ahead, shoot out. Yes.
So in this top team, can you please once more touch that point on if there is one person who is a troublemaker in those, how to handle that kind of a group? Somebody who's not cooperative or disrupting the meeting or the workshop.
Yeah. See, what happens is if you know that that person, now who that person would be, there will be in the top team, there is somebody who is a CEO or an MD, right?
Yes, yes.
You would have already had a discussion with him or her before the this. You would have shared the whole design of the workshop, and you would have got agreement from the MD that this is where, this is what it will be, and this is where you should not come, and you should not speak this way or that way, because that will really cause people to shut up. And if they are shutting up, then what is the point of having a workshop, right? Okay. So there will be this type of agreement which you have to acquire before that. That is about with the MD. Now we come to other than MD. There can be another person who can be, can be egoistic, etc. Uh, One, of course, is that yes, you would have had a discussion with that person also, right? So, and uh, we have to play the whole situation. Sometimes we have to give a certain sort of, time and opportunity, appreciate the person when he is making a, uh, but we also have to be very, very sort of, clear, because his over participation can actually shut out other people. So we go back to that whole issue of gate opening and gate closing. We might have to close gate on that person. How do you do it without offending that person is the skill that you learn as you go ahead, right? Is that okay?
Yes.
Right.
Thank
Okay. Yes. Okay. Any other question? Right.
So I just wanted you to advise us and give us some quick tips for the exams since this is going to be our last session. Any takes in your last session for us?
Especially so on an online format.
Yes,
Will it be
absolutely.
more
That
objective or what can we expect?
Yeah, see, I don't have a final, what is called guidelines from head office. Though I have been participating in the discussions and I have made certain suggestions. One suggestion that I had made, and I think mostly it will be true, is that it will not be 3 hour session. It will be a 2 hour session, because I feel that online will be a little more stressful, and therefore that can be. There was some debate about that certain parts of this can be made objective. We have had a look at certain proctoring solutions, which essentially means is that you appear in the examination from your own home. However, there is your webcam is on, your mic is on, and there is an invigilator, at a central place who is monitoring you. Now, that invigilator has got the authority that if he sees that any of the participant or any of the examinee is having what is called uh, unfair means, then can warn that person, and also can, in extreme cases, can just stop the test, and that person's decision is going to be final. Let me tell you that's now we come to the type of questions. The type of questions which I have suggested is that largely we should not bother about giving questions which are more like definition, concept, or whatever that type. We should give small but application-oriented, questions. So we don't have to bother. I mean, I would go ahead even say that it can be an open book examination, except that the people should not be able to consult amongst themselves, right? Right. So this will likely to be more application oriented, smaller questions, questions requiring smaller answers, to the point, and because you are doing it on the screen, so yes, there will be maybe some challenges here and there. Most of you will be quite good at typing your answer. That's all. Nothing. So you would be actually getting a rehearsal on a particular time. That is, you will go through an examination, which is obviously a pilot one, to give you familiarity with the entire process. Okay. So don't worry about that. Okay.
So much so, thank you.
Right. So then
be
when
nice.
then when you get into the examination, by that time you will be quite comfortable, right? How to log in, how to get access, and what to do, what not to do, because there is one this thing that in one of the software you do not have to touch the F5, because F5 means finally finished and done, right? So don't touch that till you are through with your, exam. There is a possibility of reviewing a question also. You move from one question to another question, but you can come back to the previous question also, and like that. So there is, you will get familiarity with this, and to my mind, it will be quite okay. In fact, it is really creating a very big transformation in ISTT also. Why? Because we have had requests from people abroad to become member or to become a participant, but we said that okay, you will have to. For example, one of the girl, she was saying that I'm going to be in Moscow, so how do I appear in the examination? Now the point is, if in future we have students from Dubai, Moscow, Australia, anywhere. They can write their examination from wherever they are, right? Okay, so that's the type of thing which is happening. We are looking forward to that. And also, if suppose there is somebody who is, say, in some far off location and can't come to the content classes, now you have this online content classes where you can be anywhere as long as you have access to the a laptop and you have connectivity. You can always sort of participate in this. So that's a good change that's going to come, though this was all forced because of this pandemic. But let's see, there's a plus point of, or at least this is how we are expanding ourselves much further. Okay, all of you should also see it that this is a tough time, but in the tough time there is a lot of new things which happen, and lots of new things we learn, and we learn quite well. And sometimes some of the best things start in the most crisis prone times, right? Okay, so any further question, or shall we close it? Right.
There's one question in the chat box. Like Neha is asking if there are some network issues. So, like, are there any suggestions or
Yeah.
do you tackle them?
Yeah, sir, because it's raining in Mumbai, and in fact, we had to cancel one of our contact classes because of the